A world-renowned wine connoisseur is passing through Western Washington. He's from Australia. And down under, September is Australian Wine Month. He stopped by Q13 Fox News this morning to do a little Wine 101 and to teach us a lot about the finer points of wine tasting and Australian wines, by the way. Here's Matt Lane. Good morning, Matt.
Christine.
Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming to Q13 Fox News this morning.
Welcome.
Let's do a little Wine 101. First of all, sometimes people struggle with the opening of the bottle of the wine, which seems very elementary to you, but show us real quick how it's done.
Well, firstly, there's numerous ways to open a bottle of wine, and
Which is the best wine opener? Because you have a bunch of them.
oh, a
here.
bunch of them. Plus, there's that new one which they call the rabbit and so forth. But the one I've grown up with is the famous waiter's friend, or the wine key. So the best way to open a bottle of wine is grab the knife, obviously nice and sharp. Just get it on the sides and just turn the bottle, as you can see, and just pull the cap off.
Oh, easy.
Easy, a bit of practice, and
Okay.
you can perfect it in no time. Secondly,
No one's around.
this the wine screw.
Okay.
Just put that into the bottle, about 6 turns.
Not all the way.
No.
Okay.
About a turn and a half from the top.
Okay.
That's the best way. And a lot of waiters' friends these days have this sort of double lever action. So the first thing you need to do is put that lever on the side of the bottle, nice and tight, pull it up,
Comes right out.
as you can see, and
Okay.
then with the double lever action, you go straight to the top and pull it straight out.
And this is a Chardonnay as you take the cork out. Which kind of glasses do we use with the Chardonnay? And my second question is, there are really no more rules about white, red, going with fish or dark or
Correct.
red meat anymore, right?
They're just guidelines, really, because a lot of wine and food these days are to be enjoyed sort of on a subjective level. So whatever you enjoy is what you should enjoy, and those guidelines are basically there just to help you, give you more of a sort of an advantage in a way.
But it's not a faux pas anymore, so to speak. So for a Chardonnay, do you use like a more fluted, more smaller glass? Is that what you use?
With sort of dry aromatic varietals like Chardonnay and Riesling and even sparkling wine and so forth and champagne, it's good to use these sort of glassware because you can sort of enable those delicate flavours to hold in the glass a lot
Why don't
better.
we pour some? Because that's part of the tasting process is the visuals and the nose and how you taste. Show us how that's done and why you're doing what you're doing.
Well, the reason why we swell a glass like this too, firstly, is to release all those beautiful flavours in the wine. But another interesting point about assessing wine is that you must look at its clarity. And if the wine is clear and clean, it doesn't have any cloudiness to it.
Is that why people do this?
Exactly.
Okay, so what am I looking for?
You're
Just
looking
that
for
I
brightness.
Looks bright.
Looks bright. It looks clean.
It looks clean.
Looks fresh.
Okay.
That's it.
And then do you smell it, right? What am I
Basically-
smelling for?
You're smelling for the fruit flavours, the aromatics, the wonderful, beautiful flavours and the myriad of flavours that wine sort of possesses. So once you've swelled the wine, and you swell the wine to release those flavours, you
Sniff it?
exactly, you sniff it, take one big sniff,
And we're not supposed to drink it on air.
and then we take a big sip.
And then imagine, if you would, the drinking of it.
That's
Now,
exactly
the relaxing and reflecting part of it is as much part of the wine tasting as any other part of that you've described, right?
Sure.
You taste it, and then what? The reflection of...
Basically the flavours. You also have sort of so many different senses in your nose and in your mouth, and they will tell you numerous different flavours as well. So once you've reflected on those flavours, is it good? Do you like it? Is it fresh? Is it clean? Is it old? Is it sort of soft? Is it rich and fruity?
And the more expensive wines aren't necessarily the better wines, right?
No, you're actually spot on. There are some very, very good wines, and obviously the price points reflect that, but there are some fabulous wines out there to be had under $15, and that's where you just need to search around and ask and get advice from people in the know, and you can really enhance your wine experience more.
And your familiarity with Washington wines, what's your take?
Well, very, very good. Very good. I've only tasted a handful of wines from Washington State, but there are a couple of wineries that I've really taken a shine to.
And then what's to know about Australian wines as we celebrate Australian Wine Month in September?
There's a lot to know about Australian wine. Firstly, its history. Australian wine history is about 160 years of age. So we've come from a very big background in fortified wine and now into the great sort of table wines of the world, such as the varieties like Shiraz, which has really taken the world by storm.
Now, beer drinkers always make light of the fact that Australians and Americans versus Irish drink beer entirely different ways, but is that not the case with wine tasting? Everybody's pretty much have the same standards for wine tasting, right?
Correct. It's pretty well universal because wine is a beverage to be consumed from food to also just by itself. So glassware is a necessity. Obviously, you need this to retract corks, except for the modern day when you get in these wonderful screw caps coming into play. But wine is basically not only a universal subject, but also consumed almost identical.
Part of the celebration will take place in Linwood. There's more information on your screen right there. You have a couple events also throughout the area, and they're on our website, Q13.com. One's at Chutney's in Seattle as well. Indian Aussie tasting. That sounds pretty interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much for being here.
Thanks, Christine.
Matt Lane, appreciate it, here on Q13 Fox News this morning. Over to you, Walter. Did you hear what he said? He
I
said
think
I'm
it's great.
spot on.
Oh, yes. I like
that.
that. My wife just called and said, if only you had an Australian accent. And I was just like, what's that supposed to mean? But anyway, good morning, Western Washington.